Adam, thanks for having me. My name is Rob Viglione. I am the CEO of Horizen Labs and the co-founder of Horizen, the public blockchain network. Thanks for having me at REIMAGINE.
All right, hello, and welcome to REIMAGINE 2021. This is our 7th conference in a monthly series of events, bringing you nothing but the best projects, bright minds and leaders in the space. We've been fortunate enough to invite many talented individuals and teams to come speak with us, providing updates, insights, and all the above, really, that's happening in crypto. I'll be your host today, Adam, from the MouseBelt team, where we focus on early stage investments through our accelerator or providing development support to a number of growing projects, as well as education within the MouseBelt university program. Our main objective is simple. Our goals are pretty straightforward. It's increasing adoption, use cases, and real-world applications. We seek to educate our audience, as much as possible on blockchain by helping them understand crypto's real impact. Again, thank you all for tuning in at the moment. We have an exciting interview for you today. Let me go ahead and introduce you, Rob Viglione, CEO of Horizen Labs and co-founder of Horizen. First of all, Rob, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come speak with us. How you doing?
Great, and honestly, really my pleasure. And I am calling in from beautiful Puerto Rico.
That's a very happening crypto community out there for quite some time for various reasons. We've worked on a couple projects on the development side that were out in Puerto Rico, and everybody can Google kind of the activity going on there. So glad for you to join us on this Friday. We'll try to make this short and sweet and kick off the week to a good start. So let's get right into it. We've been hosting this conference now. This is our 7th one in probably like the past 9-10 months. We've been rocking and rolling with video content, interviews, people like yourself coming on to kind of share what you guys are working on. But before that, everybody has like a cool journey into Bitcoin, into blockchain. Tell me yours. Like where did you come from and how did you end up in blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, the first part of my career, I was a military officer, U.S. Air Force, physicist, mathematician, somewhere on the hard science side. And I was actually in Afghanistan when I first got into Bitcoin. I spent a couple of years over there. And right away, I realized that from my perspective, what I was seeing on the ground was some of the biggest potential use cases for Bitcoin in this cryptocurrency tech was really just helping people in developing markets that just don't have access to the things that we take for granted in the developed world, with mature capital markets, good banking systems, reasonably stable political systems. Right? So this was what really got me into Bitcoin, was seeing just tremendous potential. And then I went from that life into academia for my PhD, which fun fact, I actually defend my dissertation on crypto finance in a few weeks.
Oh, wow. Congratulations on that front. What was your first thought on kind of this peer-to-peer transactional, network? Obviously, the Bitcoin, the blockchain era, it's really kind of a buzzword, as we just mentioned prior to this call. Cryptography, distributed systems, encryption, that's been around for years, and I feel like it's just snowballed. So what was your first thought, I guess, when you read or came across Bitcoin, like in general?
I mean, it blew me away. And I can't say that I had any idea that it would take off the way that it did. And this was in 2011. So it was shocking to me, shocking in a really good way. Like, this is the future of money. And I still have an old email that I sent my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and close group of friends and family, saying, this is the future of money. Right? This is where we're going. We all need to figure out how we can participate in some way. And it's just, I didn't realize how it would accelerate and to the extent to which it would become successful. But it's been a fantastic ride. I mean, honestly, I've loved it, from getting in and participating on like evangelizing it, teaching people how to use a Bitcoin wallet, to then ultimately go and get my PhD and doing my research on crypto finance.
And what year was this? Like, because Bitcoin launched in 2008. There were some attempts in the 90s. The cypherpunk movement and kind of these other projects and teams trying to tackle this issue. What year were you reading up on this and kind of like diving deeper into it?
Yeah, so for me, 2011 was the big aha moment, and then 2014 when I started doing something about it, and then 2017 when we launched Zencash at the time, which is today Horizen, in 2019 when we finally raised some VC capital and built a software company, Horizen Labs.
Great. And my next question before I ask it, I want to, for our viewers, without going too much into detail, because I'm going to save it for the conversation, but what are you working on in a nutshell? Because my next question is going to be towards privacy, which that's what you're working on, and you'll elaborate here shortly. But privacy in today's world. So what are you working on real quick? And then I'll go ahead and ask you this question about how can we relay that to the grand scheme of things of how we transaction, whether it's value or data. But what are you working on real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I love the privacy question because Horizen is all about privacy. We launched as a privacy preserving blockchain ecosystem. What Horizen Labs does is we actually build products using a class of cryptography called zero knowledge. So zero knowledge proofs, ZKPs, to extend the types of things people are willing to put on a public ledger. So there's a little bit of a fun fact is that Bitcoin and these types of open blockchains are more pseudonymous than anonymous, in the sense that there are very strong, powerful correlation techniques now where you can analytically, link, human beings' identities to their whole chain of transactions. So what we work on, in a nutshell, is the type of technology that breaks that link. And we're focusing on extending, a whole bunch of different types of data for which we use zero knowledge, but ultimately it's about breaking that link so that people can remain confident about what they put on a public ledger is actually secure.
Great. And we'll probably have you repeat some of that, because that's basically, for all of you tuning in, that's kind of this discussion right now. It's privacy, scaling, and how I want to tie it into our viewers is in real world right now, what are we giving up? Like, you're tackling this privacy, and you kind of just touched on it, which you're going to probably touch on it again shortly after this question, but what are we giving up, right? So the viewers that are tuning in, when we talk about privacy, they probably think that it is private, whether they're logging into a website or using a bank or a credit card or some kind of other, transactional activity. What is not private today that maybe we think is private? And then obviously it's not private. So you're providing this solution in the blockchain space, but for everybody watching, when they think of privacy, what should they be thinking about that they may not have thought about in today's world?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say the average person doesn't care about privacy until all of a sudden something happens and they really care about privacy, right? Now, so there's that argument that there's so much sensitive information that we generate in our, throughout the course of our lives, especially as more of our lives are in the digital world. We're generating just a ton of information every day with everything we do, from the websites we go to the Facebook posts that we like, or even just like spend a few seconds scanning before we even move on. Facebook's measuring that. Like, everything we do is being measured in some way. And this information, so let's say like 10 years ago, this information didn't necessarily have a lot of value. So you have one case where like you don't want your identity stolen and people to actually do things that could hurt you economically or violate your privacy in a way that you might care about, right? But then there's this other very pragmatic argument, which is, more so today than ever, data has value, like real economic value. And you can see this in the valuations skyrocketing for these tech giants, these platforms that make most of their money by actually harvesting your data that you're giving them in exchange for using the platforms that they give you, on the surface for free. It's not for free. They're actually generating a lot of economic value off you. So what we're doing is kind of trying to flip this upside down one step at a time, where you control your data. So if you control your data, and we think about your data that you generate at like every single point that you generate it. We're not collecting data. We're not a platform that's kind of aggregating data and harvesting it. What we do is we provide the tech so that every bit of data that you generate is yours, it's encrypted, and you can choose to do something with it or choose to do nothing with it.
No, great. And you bring up like a couple components there that I didn't really think about right now, which was privacy, in terms of probably people think, yeah, I'm staying private because I have code, I have password, I have, all this kind of infrastructure that we're used to physically. Like, I'm in my home, I have cameras, like insurance, like these other kind of intimate, like privacy products, services. But then when we go into the digital world, we kind of at this point have just opened up our, put down our privacy shield, and now we're exposed and we don't really know it. And like you said, it's been like this for the last, social media days, probably dating back to, MySpace or something in 2000, early 2000s. And it's just ballooned where, as a, if, what is it? If it's free, like you're the product, right? Like you're giving up all your info. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that you touch on that. So now let's kind of tie that into the digital world, where I still think the ones that maybe understand crypto a little bit, and not even, maybe even traditional individuals out there, like the masses, the retail, that think Bitcoin is private already or better than cash, right? But little do they know, it's actually the quite opposite. It's an open ledger. So maybe touch on kind of the digital openness, that the misconception that you're hiding from taxes and all this, but in reality, the whole pattern's there. It's actually easier, to find the pattern there on illegal activities or whatnot. So touch on one thing: how open is the digital world that we still need to be concerned about privacy? And then let's tie it into Horizen and how you guys are tackling that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the big innovation for Bitcoin is they removed kind of middlemen from the loop, and middlemen in the sense of validating transactions. So if I send you money or a message, there's someone out there that can verify that it happened without the middleman. So it's opening up these systems to the world to be able to publicly verify, validate. Now, that's great. Like, it's a huge step forward for humanity. But the thing is, it's all based on this asymmetric cryptography. And not to go too much in the weeds, but you have, say, a Bitcoin address. It's just an example for Bitcoin. I'm not picking on Bitcoin. It's fantastic. Yeah. But you have a public address, which is linked to your private key. And everything that you spend money on, everything, even if you have multiple addresses, they're all linked together because they're all part of a public ledger. Everything that you do in this world of public ledgers is open to the world, and there's an immutable record that never goes away because all of these transactions are recorded forever on a peer-to-peer ledger. So even today, and this wasn't the case back in 2009 and 10, but today there's very sophisticated correlation techniques. There's whole companies that raise a lot of money that are being funded, employed by governments around the world to analyze the Bitcoin blockchain and these other public blockchains to correlate transactions to human beings. And then as soon as they link you on one of your addresses, they link you on everything that you've done is connected to that.
Which kind of goes back to cash is still king if you're trying to go that route. And the whole media narrative of trying to facilitate transactions to stay off the grid couldn't be further from the truth. Like, if you want to, get spotted, jump on chain. Like, it's the most easiest way. There's companies out there that do these analytics algorithms, super easy. And it's also good for the public to know that too. Like, the media portrayed it one way, but really, like you said, the point of crypto is a peer-to-peer transaction, cutting out the middleman, the friction. And not only that, I mean, I'm here in the US, so the dollar is dominant. People it's not a demand or a need quite yet, but the rest of the world can leverage this technology they just need a phone and an internet and sign up, and now they can transfer amongst everybody. So there are multiple privacy solutions out there. Compare and contrast kind of what you've done different, or actually, and also talk about the chain, the base layer. I know you're talking about side chains before in the past. Let's kind of get into what Horizen, the protocol is doing, where that stemmed from, and how you compare and contrast to kind of everybody else that you're doing differently.
Yeah, so I mean, the evolution of privacy in the cryptocurrency world started with basically lumping transactions together and mixing them. Right, just like basic mixers that can kind of obfuscate. Well, maybe you can't tell it's exactly me, sending money to Adam because there's a mixing process. Well, if you can mix something, you can unmix it, right? So people realize it's still on a public ledger. We can then unmix it, and then people took it to the next step. Well, let's do this under the hood at the protocol level. Let's do protocol mixing, right? So it increased the set of transactions that you can mix together. That's good, because before, when people were using these mixers, the fact that you send Bitcoin into a mixer is a red flag, and everyone's watching that Bitcoin and everyone's looking, where did that Bitcoin come from? And try to, it's like that red flag for the world to start focusing on you specifically. Then you have the on-chain mixing with, say, the crypto note protocol, like Monero is the classic example of crypto note protocol. And then you had Zcash, which was the pioneer in the type of cryptography that we use in coin anonymity. So what they did is they brought zero knowledge proofs onto a public blockchain. Now, zero knowledge proofs for your audience are like, the simple explanation is, I can send you money and the world can verify that the money was in my control to begin with, and the world can verify that all the check marks that need to be checked off for a blockchain transaction happen have been valid and checked off, right? But you can do this in a way where the world can only see that all of the boxes have been checked. They can't actually see that it was me sending you money, like they can't see our addresses, and they can't see the amount. This is what Zcash brought to the table. Now, we can't take credit for that. What we're doing is we're innovating on extending that from coin transfer to a whole bunch of different types of data structures. So you can do digital invoicing, you can do identity, you can do voting systems, you could do, like, we could actually audit like private blockchains and like just have a proof coming off of a private blockchain that what happened in that private blockchain was valid without revealing any of those private transactions. So there's a whole nother world that our technology now opens up. And the way that I see this from a business perspective is, there's a whole bunch of things that people might want to put on a public ledger to enjoy the benefits of a public blockchain, like the fact that anyone could audit this stuff, and you have data integrity by a public network. Well, we blow the door open from not just coin transfer, but now all these other things and data structures that now people can put on a public ledger with our technology.
And how's that evolution gone? Like you said, I think going from just wanting to be private amongst a coin-to-coin transfer, value transfer, to now it opening up the doors. How has the discussions changed? Obviously, there was demand for you to or you saw this, you foresee this coming. What are the conversations from like coin to coin to now enterprise level, gaming, like these other verticals or these other sectors? What's the feedback from your conversations that you're having?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you guys some insight in our kind of business development. Is we are finding our bread and butter product is servicing the blockchain industry right now, because there are a variety of public blockchains that are operating that still want privacy, like this type of privacy technology, but don't want to build it into their layer 1 protocol for a variety of reasons. I mean, it could be clunky from like a technology perspective. It requires very deep sophistication in this type of cryptography that maybe a dozen people in the world can actually do. So like, we're actually now partnering with these other public blockchains where we're providing zero knowledge proofs as a service. All right, so that's actually one of our bread and butter. So it goes.
Wow.
We this surprised us. We actually were originally targeting like businesses, B2B use cases, enterprise. But I mean, public blockchains out there have a big need for this stuff because they already have large use cases like on public ledgers that now like they want some privacy for.
And no, you're right. And I think so talk to me about the architecture a little bit of Horizen. You're talking about kind of interoperability, right? With layer ones. Are you considered a layer 1, layer 2? Kind of give me some oversight on how Horizen was built.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question, and there's so much to talk about. So we have our own layer 1. The Horizen public mainnet right now is operational. It's in production. It's a layer 1, right? What we offer now is we offer the world's first totally decentralized sidechain protocol. So for those crypto geeks out there that are familiar with like Polkadot and Cosmos and these other sidechain projects, what we do is we replace the validators, like these humans that are running software. We replace them with cryptographic circuits that actually connect the Horizen main blockchain with all of these other sidechains. And the V1 of our sidechain system that we're actually going to mainnet with this year is something that has order of magnitude, the ability to do something like 1,000 sidechains. So already it's like 2 orders of magnitude bigger than the other competitors on the market in terms of the number of sidechains that can be interoperable in this kind of blockchain of blockchains environment. We connect them all with very sophisticated zero knowledge circuits. So we use zero knowledge for like the security layer and for like the data privacy layer. We've just become real experts in how to manipulate these circuits for different uses.
And what about the consensus for, I guess, the layer 1, the base layer, and then also like these side chains? How's the security
Yeah.
on
So,
these, on the design?
yeah, I mean, we bootstrapped in 2017 on Zcash tech. So we owe a lot of credit to Zcash for just like our layer one. Our layer one, and Zcash, owes credit to Bitcoin. So Zcash is basically modifications to Bitcoin, and we modified Zcash. That's the core. So that's a proof of work consensus core with Nakamoto consensus. We actually did modify Nakamoto consensus because, not so fun fact was back in 2018, we had a 51% attack on our network. In the grand scheme, it was a relatively minor attack, but it actually kicked us into gear where we said, this is just unacceptable. Like, these networks can't be, always held hostage to these 51% attacks. So we modified, we add another check into the network consensus that actually has a penalty for delayed block reporting. Not so important here, but we modified Nakamoto consensus, which is Bitcoin. Now, the side chains are all proof of stake based on Ouroboros Praus, which again, for the blockchain geeks out there, is what Cardano uses. So we have the same R&D team that we work with that Cardano has. And we've leveraged their peer-reviewed proof of stake protocol called Ouroboros Praus that we made interoperable with our cross-chain transfer protocol, which is called Zendu. And so that's it. At the end of the day, you have a hybrid proof of stake with proof of work mainnet.
And how does that affect scalability? We kind of hear about this scalability on layer ones, side chains, sharding. How have you approached this with regards to privacy and kind of that infrastructure, or that design, which is a little bit different than kind of, something else?
Yeah, so I can't release the specific numbers yet. I just had a conversation with our CTO, but I mean, it's phenomenal. Right? In fact, it's amazing because we have a blockchain ecosystem where the only information that gets recorded on the main, like Horizen mainnet, like our layer one, are proofs that are aggregated proofs, like basically composition of proofs from all of the sidechains. And as an example, with our V1, if we were to have something like 1,000 sidechains that are operating simultaneously, these sidechains all have their own transaction throughput volume that happens there. Transactions get aggregated into blocks, and then a proof gets generated on these blocks. They're actually ordered into epochs in this proof of stakes protocol, and we have a proof on the epoch of blocks. It's that aggregated proof that gets sent back to the mainnet. So you're talking, if you have 1,000 blockchains that are just sending proofs of all of their transactions kind of concurrently with each other, the throughput's enormous, and it blows away like what's currently available in the marketplace. And it's not about having before this type of protocol thinking, it was like one blockchain to rule the world. And you probably know these Bitcoin maximalists that just think Bitcoin's the only thing in the world. You can have nothing else other than Bitcoin. It's one blockchain to do everything. It's kind of absurd. So we have blockchains where you can tailor your blockchain to optimize it for whatever your function is. And that's going to be the future, where you have these optimized blockchains based on function that they're trying to serve in a marketplace. And we have the environment where now all of those transactions get aggregated with composition of proofs that get then sent back to the mainnet. So you could have something like, in theory, like 1 million transactions per block that are going on here in just our V1 system.
And you've touched on multiple chains just right now, Bitcoin, Zcash, Cardano. How do you see, this question might be a little bit off, but how do you see the future in terms of many blockchains? Do you think there's gonna be a bunch of layer ones and then Horizen kind of ties all those, can tie all those together? Are you gonna see minimal layer ones and just kind of, it's going to consolidate? How do you kind of see, and nobody can predict anything, but I've had discussions in the last few days, during these interviews, and I've heard a lot of Bitcoin actually development, which we don't hear too much. I was talking to Stacks and a couple of these other, Bitcoin kind of derived protocols. And so how do you see kind of the landscape playing out? And obviously it seems as though your product, it's interoperable, so it doesn't really matter how many there are. But I'm just curious to know what you think the landscape is, because there's going to be some niche ones, there's going to be some general ones. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and so just to clarify, because I don't want to misrepresent what we're doing, our network is interoperable with itself. So all of these blockchains on our network are interoperable, but we're not interoperable with Bitcoin. Bitcoin could make us interoperable, but they would have to add our interoperability protocol. They're not going to do it, right? So the world that I see is very heterogeneous, and that I see many blockchains performing certain functions, right? Because at the end of the day, a blockchain is, I guess the blockchains of the future will be optimized for certain functions. And there's no reason to think that there will be one blockchain that just gets optimized for everything that the world wants to do. It's just not going to happen, right? So the world that I see is you'll probably see kind of a coalescing in the marketplace. So lots of innovation, because this is permissionless. You're going to constantly see this I call it Schumpeter, the great economist who came up with creative destruction models of the marketplace. You're going to see this massive creative destruction on steroids with battle testing everything, challenging everything. Look, what we're doing at Horizen is we're challenging the marketplace out there now. We're going to challenge the Polkadots, the Cosmos. We're going to challenge other blockchains that do certain things, right? And we're not going to win on everything, but there will be some niches where our tech is just optimized to do things better than others. So I think we're going to probably see a very dynamic, evolving marketplace where you have clustering around functions, and you'll have constant competitive entry and destruction around these functions.
And to clarify to your beginning point, the interoperability within Horizen. Sorry, you were talking about all the side chains can transact between each other, along with obviously on chain to the base layer. Right.
And so to be fair, though, going a step further, we're working with many other blockchain protocols out there in the marketplace right now, on the business side. And we are doing things. So we have announcements going out all the time of, look, we're partnering with this blockchain, partnering with this other blockchain. And we are thinking through interoperability between chains to do certain things. So for instance, we
I think that's what I was trying to understand. You're working with kind of various teams and partnering up within blockchain. So it remind me, how does that work? I guess since you have public or not public, just at a high level, are they connecting to your site, or what are the discussions? I guess connecting to the side chain, the main chain.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So Celsius Network, the first or second largest lender in our industry, they're a centralized finance app, CFI app, and they basically have a large pool of cryptocurrency assets. They get deposited, then they lend them out, right? And there's a big marketplace around this. All of their users need to trust Celsius that they actually own the reserves that they say they do, that they're not running away with the money. So what we're doing is we're actually building a sidechain for Celsius that monitors all the different chains that they have assets on their network, starting with Bitcoin. So we're monitoring the Bitcoin blockchain. We'll have a Celsius, we're calling it an audit blockchain, that actually replaces the EYs and the PwCs of the world. You don't need those auditors. We'll have a decentralized blockchain application that monitors the Bitcoin blockchain. And here's the secret sauce is we have a blockchain, this audit chain, that will reconstruct every transaction that happens on Bitcoin, but reconstruct them in a snark-friendly way. And not to go too far in the weeds on this, but by reconstructing all the transactions that happen on another public blockchain in a snark-friendly way, all of a sudden then we can start doing these types of ZKP operations on them with our audit chain. So basically, we're not interoperable with Bitcoin, but we are monitoring the Bitcoin blockchain, reconstructing the transactions, and now we can all of a sudden start doing stuff. It's more again, on the data side. We're not transmitting Bitcoin between anyone. We're actually monitoring the transactions that are happening, and we're actually building proofs. So now going back to Celsius will be able to offer a decentralized product to their clients to say, look, there is an audit chain here that the entire world can participate in, and we prove, basically we sign all the addresses that we claim we own, so we can prove, and it's all this information is in a zero knowledge proof, and we can actually aggregate all of the Bitcoin across all of their addresses that they control, that they submit proof that they control, and we can show the world, look, check, they actually have control of exactly the amount of reserves that they claim they have.
Wow, that's interesting. And for everybody that's listening to this, don't be afraid. It's kind of a good thing. And this all happens on the back end, right? This doesn't affect the user, right?
Yeah, exactly. And look, this is us. This is our business model. As we're providing this the picks and shovels for the industry. We want to be an infrastructure play.
So what does that do? So what does that do to go from CFI to centralized to a decentralized kind of operation? That's kind of the best of both worlds, extracting the nuts and bolts of, we're used to kind of centralized. I guess this is kind of the transition from centralized, not completely decentralized, but throwing in some components here, throwing in Horizen, for the user. And now the user can kind of understand, all right, I trust, Celsius, but which they've been on this show like many times. But not only that, now Horizen is kind of coming in with their own product and service to make sure that it's all verified in a ZK Snark way, which is cool.
Right. Right. I think so too. It's like the best of both worlds where,
Yeah.
decentralization has a cost, like a cost of efficiency, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, DeFi is amazing, but DeFi is only valuable when you can pre-program all of the contracts that you're ever going to need, right? It kind of like in advance. When you have imperfect contracting, you don't know exactly all the future states that you need to operate in. Centralized solutions work better. Now we're combining the two.
Yeah, that's great. You summed it up, and that's what I was trying to get to, and you hit the nail on the head. Where like you get the centralized aspect of maybe efficiency, but then you also get the decentralized, aspect of kind of what blockchain has to offer. Mm-hmm. So the challenges and barriers. It seems like the pace of innovation is rapid. Is it more on the technical side, or is it going to be the use case side that's gonna throw some wrenches? Or where do we lie on kind of the challenges there to maybe more adoption? And we could keep it within blockchain because it sounds like technically like things are moving pretty good. The use case side, everybody in blockchain in general is trying to understand like how do we implement it, and this is a great use case actually for what you're building, what Horizen's done.
Yeah, I think so too. So I'll tell you from the ecosystem perspective, and I'll tell you from my perspective, like the company that I'm running, what my big pain points are. So from an industry perspective, for those who have been in Bitcoin for some time, that it's basically technology built by geeks for geeks, right? It's not very user friendly yet, and that's fine. Like early stage tech doesn't have to be very user friendly. As we start hitting mainstream, we have to start solving some real problems for people. Like my mom's not going to want to know what asymmetric cryptography is, right? And she's not going to want to know what VeriCrypt is to encrypt her hard drive to keep her keys safe, right? Like she's not going to want to know this stuff. So we need to jump that barrier on the product side, and this is where like core tech meets product, and we need to hire much better product managers as an industry. Like we're trying to hire product managers ourselves. It's hard. Now, my pain point as a company is we have a product backlog, basically like a client backlog and partner backlog. We can't service. Like we're churning out projects as fast as we can for clients, and we just can't service them. So right now we're in like a big expansion mode where we need to find top talent that can actually operate in this like crazy world of blockchain, but still link this crazy world of blockchain to products that people are actually going to love and really use, solve real problems. So this is where we are. We're in big expansion mode, trying to build another product engineering team, and it's slow going because like we've just taken a commitment to quality. Because if you look at the product that we're building, it's very sophisticated engineering, cryptographic work that requires big attention to detail and perfection. And perfection on hundreds of thousands of lines of code, it is tough, right? So like for us, we hire very slow. It's a very painful process, but I mean, it's something we're trying to hire as fast as we can.
Well, maybe in the meantime, I can lend you my dev team,
Would love it. Let's talk.
We have about 30, we have about 30, 40 devs right now. And we've been really busy. Our team's been together for like 5-6 years. Kind of lost my train of thought here. Oh, this kind of technology, talking about, you brought up like, our parents and like the retail, the masses, like trying to understand the UI UX stuff. Is there a use case where your technology can help like prevent people from losing their keys, where there's a custody and then there's the user, and like obviously not your key or not your coins, not your keys, not your coins. Is there like any kind of opportunity there where nobody knows anything? Like, I don't know your keys, but I know these are your keys. Because I feel like, how many stories have we heard where people lose their keys, right? But you don't want to give it to, like, you could put it in your safe box at the bank. But is there like any kind of opportunity around that angle?
I mean, it's a really good question. I would say, so first of all, I'm a huge fan of multi-sig, like multi-signature addresses. everyone who's like really a crypto nerd, get into multi-sig and put your funds on multi-sig addresses. And then you can distribute the keys to people that you trust, and make sure you have a good protocol in place. Maybe not even other people, maybe it's just in different locations, right? Different computers, different safe boxes, your choice. Now, what I will say is the tech that we have, the opportunity here is because we are building like a decentralized audit blockchain, it opens the door where maybe now you can at least have a little bit more trust to the custodians in the marketplace. And there are custodians out there, and this is a booming business within crypto. People that are professionals and actually managing private keys and storing funds. So maybe now, like, we can combine our tech, our audit chain, and hey, any custodians listening to this, come talk to me. Let's do a trial for it. But we can actually audit then all of the addresses that you should control to make sure that you actually control them. And this might be something that adds that other layer of like trust for users at the end of the day, where they might be willing to trust funds with custodians. But hey, I'm a crypto like geek myself, and like I don't typically like to trust third parties with my private keys. I think we should rationally like be like squirrels and like store crypto in different places, but that's everyone's choice.
Nice. So we got a few minutes here. Like we've touched on a lot of topics. We talked about your path, your journey, kind of what privacy means from not only like the physical world, which we're used to, like, being secure and private, but it's interesting that we don't take that mindset into how we operate online on our phones. And that's kind of what you're, one step beyond that, kind of in this, Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, you're integrating, Horizen as a technical solution, privacy solution, not only within the blockchain ecosystem, but obviously for the user and for, the customers, the clients that are using it. So last kind of few questions here, and I want to touch on the community of Horizen. So Horizen Labs, what are you guys doing there that's benefiting kind of the community there, the growth, and then the developer community? How do you target them to expand that, get more applications, get more utility out of it? And then actually, I forgot to ask, is there a token involved here?
There is. So Zen is our token, ticker symbol ZEN, Zen. I think the best ticker symbol ever. Really happy to have secured that some years ago. But so Zen is like the gas in our ecosystem. So if you're going to launch a sidechain, like these are proof of stake sidechains, Zen is the stake required, and Zen's also required as the transaction payload to broadcast the transaction to the network. So
and how about that cost? How about those costs? Obviously, we hear gas prices elsewhere. How have you guys managed to maintain kind of those efforts, or are you?
Yeah, so trivial. So we have Zen is in production just as the Zcash variant. So the main blockchain, like I said before, is like a Zcash variant. It's already out there. Transaction costs are like 1/10,000th of a Zen. Zen's at like $50 right now. So 1/10,000th of $50. I mean, transaction costs are trivial. On the sidechains, because the sidechains are going to require such specialized work, like we're going to have workers that just have hardware optimized or hardware with optimized like snark algorithms. These guys get paid. So it's we're estimating something like a 1 cent per transaction cost on these sidechains because they're so computationally heavy. But even that, like, so compare 1 cent to what's going on Ethereum now. The good news is these costs don't scale with usage like Ethereum does, because Ethereum is one blockchain with congestion per block. We have a parallel blockchain as well. So if your sidechain with us gets congested, you launch another parallel one, right? So it's not like you would ever come up to congestion pricing, and that's the difference. So for us, in terms of scalability, like you look at this as like your costs just kind of plateau on the transaction side with usage, or actually your average transaction costs can be coming down because you're building on fixed infrastructure that's already being subsidized. So anyway, it's interesting economics. I think it's an important note for long-term scaling.
For sure. Great. No, that's good insight. Glad you touched on that. Glad I remembered. And then two, the other question is the community. I heard like, you guys have like 40,000 plus like, minor infrastructure node, I don't know what you call them, validator infrastructure, but like, 40,000 plus there. What's the strategy on, and that's one question. How were you successful on that front? And then two, what are you guys doing to bring in more developers to kind of work on the tech?
I love these questions. So the first one is one of the big things that we've innovated on was more sustainable economics. So the idea here was there are many different contributors into a blockchain ecosystem to make it successful, not just developers, not just miners, and they should all be compensated on their margin for their contributions, right? That's how we define sustainability. We carved out a part of the block reward for people that run the infrastructure, and it was a phenomenal success. That's how we have, I think now it's like 45,000 nodes on the network running our software. The other thing on the developer side, and this is really important, is we're now catalyzing a massive open source developer campaign. It's called the Horizen Developer Environment and Horizen Early Adopter Program. These are two developer-centric programs that we have. Like HDE, the developer environment, is kind of like a bounty program on steroids that we need to hire a few developer evangelists to just focus on nothing but curating open source tasks that are meaningful to contribute to the ecosystem and actually like build teams of developers to work on them together in a gamified way. This is the way we're tackling open source within Horizen, is gamifying contributions and actually having the protocol subsidize a lot of this work in a meaningful way. The other thing is, we're actually cultivating different software shop relationships. Like Horizen Labs is a software development company. And we're now we're the dominant software company in Horizen, but there are other software companies that are building in our ecosystem, and we're just really trying to catalyze that from the individual contributors to teams of contributors to companies that are contributing.
And how about the tooling available? SDKs, APIs,
Yep.
explorers, all the things that are kind of involved in this space. How, what's the status on that? Are you looking, is there a wish list going on right now?
Yeah, so yes, and yes, we have all that. And the most important one is the sidechain SDK, because this is that software developer kit where you can launch your own blockchain. And basically, for the devs out there, anything that you can program in Java, you can program into a data box with our SDK. And then all the other stuff, the supporting infrastructure. We do need a lot more work. We're working on the explorers constantly. So we have explorers out there currently, but we need to modify them to be sidechain compatible. There's a bunch of other stuff with like our wallets that we need to be sidechain compatible. So there's a lot of work. We need help. We have resources. We're looking for good developers. Please come. Let's join the fun with us.
Awesome. So I know we've kind of gone long here, but I think I appreciate like the discussion here. Learned so much. I was stoked to kind of interview you, to kind of touch on what you guys are building, which is very important as I kind of thought about it, right? Like the privacy aspect on, the way we operate our life, to like what you guys are implementing, and then just the various use cases, not only from the developer community, but like the enterprise world. And then you just taught me today, like within the blockchain ecosystem, and this is kind of adding value, contributing value, like as much as possible. Everybody's, as the pandemic's accelerated, blockchain use cases and applications, and then, the monetary system and just kind of tech in general, it seems like you guys are primed.
I appreciate it. And this has been a really fun talk, and I encourage anyone to come participate with us. We are a big community-driven project, so we need more community members. We need active community members, people that care, want to make a difference. So we're always welcoming to new people.
Perfect. Well, this is kind of my first time meeting you. Glad you were able to join and participate during the REIMAGINE conference. We've been hosting these monthly, and they've been going great. And the whole point of it really is to kind of have these discussions of like what we've all been working on, what the innovation is coming from, like what are the ideas. It's not alien, it's not like foreign, it's just it's technology that we're trying to make better. And it's basically a new wave that's like taken over, and we've been fortunate enough to have individuals like yourself and teams to come on and talk about and kind of translate in a digestive way to like what's going on. So again, appreciate your time. I'll kind of let you go off to your weekend now. We hope to have you back.
Thank you, Adam. It's been a pleasure. I love what you're doing. Thank you.
All right. And everybody, thanks for tuning in to REIMAGINE 2021. For all of you that have missed, we have over 300 interviews, over 350 hours. We have workshops, interviews, panels. Feel free to visit the REIMAGINE YouTube channel, or you can go to ri2020.io. Until then, we'll see you again. All right. Thanks, Rob. Have a good one.
Awesome. You too.